Now we continue with South Africa's long love-hate relationship with alcohol as lockdown level 3 came into effect Monday. Social media was flush with people dancing and moving around the streets, buzz with clips of snaking queues outside liquor outlets. We now explore the relationship that our society has been having. We were joined earlier by Maurice Smithers, who's director of the Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance in South Africa. Maurice, thank you very much for staying with us. Let's continue with that conversation before we had to go to break. You were still speaking about the regulations thereafter and what the question we've had here on the agenda: should the lockdown on alcohol sale remain past the lockdown in South Africa?
Look, we don't think that there should be a complete ban on alcohol, as we had under the lockdown. That has never really worked in any country in the world, really, and it probably would not be workable in South Africa either. In fact, we have a history of a similar kind of ban that happened in South Africa from the late 19th century until 1961, where alcohol, commercially produced alcohol, was completely banned to the black population. And it's that very ban that created the illegal market in alcohol that we know today as shebeens. So banning alcohol is simply going to drive it underground. What we do need is effective controls over the way in which alcohol is used in the country, in order to create a liquor-safe society, one where drinking is safe for the people who drink as well as for the people around them. I think it's important. I'd like to show the viewers a graph. This is a graph from the UK. I don't know if people can see it well.
We can see it.
But this graph, you will see, has bars going from left to right. And what it's showing is the impact of different drugs on people who use them and on society at large. And alcohol, which is on the extreme left-hand side, is the tallest one, and it's the only one. So that's showing that the overall harm to society of that particular drug is the greatest. But it's also the only drug where the harm to society is greater than the harm to the individual. The red part of the bar is harm to society. The blue bar is the part that is the harm to the individual. So it's really important to understand that alcohol needs to be managed. It needs to be controlled in the interest of the whole of society, even, in fact, in the interest of drinkers themselves.
Yeah, Maurice, one would say alcohol is not the problem. It is those who abuse alcohol. It is those who do not know how to handle themselves because of alcohol. Because somebody would say, look, I take alcohol. I do it at home. I do it in safe confines of my work. I know when to take a double, a single. I know when to go to bed. It's not all of us who abuse alcohol. It's not all of us who can cause harm to society. What's your take on that?
Look, that's the argument that is used by the liquor industry. Their campaign from their aware.org responsible drinking arm is exactly that. It's a bit like the gun lobby, the gun people in America who say guns don't kill people, kill people. So therefore they argue against gun control. Now the point about alcohol is that it's true that some people can drink, who do drink moderately, and some people drink in a more dangerous way. But one's got to look at why that is happening. And the liquor industry cannot shift that responsibility to individuals. The reality is that one of the key ways in which people are kind of forced into a harmful use of alcohol is advertising, because advertising promotes alcohol as it glamorizes it, it normalizes it, it celebritizes it, it associates it with a number of positive things in society which encourages people to drink. Peer pressure is also a very important factor. where people are encouraged to drink more by their peers around them. So one of the things we've got to do is to denormalize alcohol in South Africa in the same way that tobacco was denormalized through the legislation in 1999. So what you're doing is creating a society where people can make a rational choice as to whether to drink or not. And we also have laws in place which minimize the possibility that people can use alcohol harmfully. So the World Health Organization, for example, says that the 3 key steps to take to do that, one is to ban or heavily restrict advertising. The other is to reduce availability. One of the key things that has happened in the first week of the state of disaster, which was from the 18th, I think, of March to the 27th of March, alcohol access was restricted to 6 o'clock in the evening. That was off consumption and on consumption. And just in that week, where we still had freedom of movement, and you still had access to alcohol from bottle stores and from restaurants and pubs and bars and taverns and so on, the rate of hospital admissions reduced, the rate of crime reduced, and the rate of motor car crashes reduced. So availability actually reduces the possibility of an increased level of harm. Yeah. And the other is pricing, is you've got to actually increase the price of alcohol. You've got to maybe introduce what they call minimum unit pricing. In certain countries, like Scotland, for example, they've reduced minimum unit pricing. So you cannot actually sell alcohol below a certain price. Because if you do sell it at these very cheap prices, you're simply encouraging people to drink more.
Yeah, as it is right now, Maurice, we saw that there was an uptick anyway of home brews that happened with the lockdown. So it sounds as if it's more of a societal problem, not necessarily. Not saying that the alcohol industry is not at fault. It also fosters change from the individual to go hand in hand with the industries and government, because individually, I think that's where the problem lies. There will not be an answer. Nobody is going to say, I give up on my alcohol, I'd rather brew it at home, as we saw in the past couple of weeks of the lockdown.
Look, I'm not in any way saying that people don't have personal responsibility. Of course they do. But that personal responsibility can only be practiced effectively in an environment that also protects them from undue influence to drink. But I think you should also remember there's a very interesting study that has been done by the World Health Organization in 2018. And they have estimated, together with researchers in South Africa, that only around 31% of people from the age of 15 and above actually drink alcohol in South Africa. Now, a lot of people are really surprised to hear that, because as we saw over the last couple of days, you saw all these massive queues of people outside different outlets trying to buy alcohol. But what about the millions of people who were not there?
Yeah.
What about the millions of people that we know don't actually drink for whatever reason, some for religious reasons, some for health reasons, choose not to drink? They are the majority of people in the country. So it's important to bear that in mind and keep that in perspective, because it means that when we look at policies around alcohol in the country, we have to realize that it is a small minority, less than a third of people who, and remember, I said 15 and above. The legal age in South Africa is 18 and above. But the reason why the World Health Organization goes from 15 and above is because they know that young people in the world, not just in South Africa, from the age of 15 and sometimes even earlier, do begin to drink. But it's a very important figure to understand, because it means that your legislation is not, if you have legislation controlling access to alcohol, you're not actually doing a disservice to the majority of the population. In fact, you're probably doing a service to the majority of the population, because the impact of alcohol harm happens in communities, happens to the lives of ordinary individuals in communities who actually have very little power to do anything about it.
Yeah. Maurice Smithers, Director of Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance in South Africa, also known as SABC. Thank you indeed for joining us. This conversation is still going to continue.
Thank you very much for the
me,
opportunity.
and it's good insight you have with us there. In fact, that comes to the question we've been asking you today is, what is your take with regards to the lifting of the ban on alcohol, or should it remain? And I can tell you the responses are coming in thick and fast. Last I checked, over 67% of you say they think that alcohol regulations should be tightened beyond the lockdown, and 32% of you saying no. So do keep on voting at the agenda_SABC is where we at. Cast your votes. It's an interesting topic, as you heard there with Maurice Smithers. We take a quick break. Stay with us. More to follow after this. You're watching The Agenda on SABC News.